This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to a live edition, our regular Scarif Live here on Saturday nights on the YouTubes of the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast. It's definitely going to be a good one. Brad, how you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic.
The Scut to my buttle? Is that what it was?
Something like that.
Something like that. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Great.
We're talking about Deadpool and Wolverine tonight, right?
Deadpool and Wolverine. Yeah, you're going to see it tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow. So yeah, we can't talk about it tonight.
We can't talk about it tonight, but I saw it last night. It was interesting. I gave my my one paragraph tweet review earlier in the day. I hope you guys saw that. But if you have not seen that movie, go check it out and form your own opinion. Don't take our word for it.
Yep. Now we're going to talk about some Star Wars to celebrate.
Yeah, we as Star Wars fans, we always like to talk about Star Wars. Isn't that true?
Yep. 200 episodes worth, huh?
200 episodes. We are recording our 200th episode tonight. We have quite a panel of folks that are interested in talking Star Wars with us. We have a very interesting topic, and we have some wonderful questions to see if anybody has any surprises for us when it comes to answering these questions. I think it's been an interesting ride. 200 episodes here at the Scarif Podcast. From 2019 to now, it has been a fantastic ride, obviously interacting with a lot of folks that interact with us regularly, and obviously as part a proud founding member of the Red 5 Network, we have quite a few podcasts that we interact with, support, and just really love hanging out with, whether you're a Red 5 Network podcast or not. I think the reason we did start the Red 5 Network is really to interact and reach out to other podcasters and content creators. We have a lot of fun doing so, talking about Star Wars, discussing all sorts of nerds, not just Star Wars, a little Star Trek, as I like to call it, the other white meat. We do a little Star Trek discussions, Marvel discussions, anything that the geeks are talking about. So we're having a lot of fun, and we have a great panel of folks that join us. But an interesting topic for sure. And I think when you proposed the idea, I think a little light bulb came on in your head, didn't it?
Yeah. So there we were. This is probably about a month ago now. Three or 4 weeks ago. And I was watching The Acolyte, and we, by now everybody knows what our opinions are. We are still going to do an episode with all of our opinions. We'll have that episode for you guys to listen to about The Acolyte. But, I was not a huge fan of that show, but I happened to be watching it with my 10-year-old son, Dylan. And, I tried my best not to, sway his opinion by tell him what I felt about the show and just let him enjoy it. And it was, I think it was episodes 6 and 7 that we were watching at the same time. And may have been 5 and 6. And he really enjoyed it. He thought it was, thought it looked cool. He didn't have all the gripes that you and I have talked about. Sure. And, so I started mulling it over. Like the next morning, I was like, are we overthinking this? Are we holding Star Wars to a standard that's just impossible for them to meet? Are we never going to be happy again with Star Wars because we think, Disney just can't, hit the mark. And, and so I put it on Twitter, like, hey, serious question. Do we have too high of standards for Star Wars, or are they impossible to meet? And it got quite the response from our followers and probably some non-followers as well. It's kind of responses all over the place about it. Then you came up with the idea, or I think mutually we came up with the idea, hey, we need to turn this into a show and actually let people talk about it. We've got some good questions lined up, and I'm excited to hear what everybody actually thinks about where Star Wars stands right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's say hello to the chat. Vader Rapina, he was the first one here. Thank you, Vader, for coming on by.
About time.
And Subtle Deviancy, our friend Subtle, and we're going to be doing a show. Let's put this up. I'm second. Does that make me Kamala? I don't know what that means. Danny from Comics and Cosmetics. Well, Comics and she did a little restructuring, and I think it's fantastic. She didn't want to pigeonhole herself into just cosmetics, so she talks about a lot of stuff. Wonderful show over there. One of our patrons. Thank you very much for supporting the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. All the shenanigans here. Patrick, what's up, my friend? Good to see Patrick here. Star Wars Steve, it's late where he's at, so I'm glad that he's joining us, staying up to watch a little of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. Happy 200th Scuttlebutt. Thank you so much for that. Andrew from the Science Fictionary podcast, another one of our Red 5 Network podcasts, and he is one of our panelists tonight. Really looking forward to having him come on by. Let's see, gonna scroll down and keep going. Danny's got a thought that I think a lot of people will probably share. I definitely do. I don't think we are holding them to an unattainable standard, but I think maybe it's something definitely that we need to kind of tease out here tonight. But good stuff. Thank you, chat, for hanging with.
Yeah, 200 episodes. I still can't believe people listen to us on purpose, not just accidentally, and that you would take the time out of your Saturday evening to spend some time with us and hang out with us, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we bring the rest of our panel up, I just wanted to remind people that we have a hotline, and some people have been using the Scarif Scuttlebutt hotline a lot lately. And Brad, when we're done with this show, I'm going to share some thoughts with you. I really want to do a specific show just to kind of react to everything that people have been saying and leaving on the voicemail. Awesome. And then if you guys want to talk about whatever, give us a call on the Scuttlebutt hotline. The number is right there, 773-234-8659. One of these weekends, we're going to do a live call-in show where you can use that number and then talk to us directly here on the YouTubes. That would be a lot of fun. We just have to kind of figure out how to bring that into our board. That shouldn't be hard.
Should have listened to those radio shows back in the day. Like, was it Delilah? Remember her? People just call in and talk about things. We need to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dr. Ruth. Things like that.
Yeah. Speaking of the end of the show, I guess we also have a PlayStation to give away.
Oh, that is correct. Our PlayStation giveaway. Very exciting. Finally, I think, when did you announce that? That was a while ago.
Oh, it was like 2 or 3 months ago now, I think.
Yeah, but tonight.
Yes.
You had a couple of questions before we bring some people out, but you want to ask those questions that we can answer before we bring people out, or
let's do that. So a couple questions.
And by the way, we will be asking these questions once we bring the folks in.
Yep. Remember these questions, folks, because you're going to get them as well. I think we'll go with the report card as well. All right. So everybody be thinking about your report card grade. So we're using 2012 as the magic year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were to give the entire Star Wars franchise, so before 2012, obviously we have episodes 1 through 6. We have, we'll put the Clone Wars cartoons in there, both versions of the Clone Wars cartoons. the Ewok movies,
Sure.
and special editions. So all those things before 2012, and then all the Disney stuff afterwards. If you were to give the Star Wars franchise as a whole a report card grade pre 2012, what would that grade be?
Yeah, good question.
So what's your grade pre 2012?
Well, pre 2012, I think as Star Wars Steve said, pre and post Disney. For reasons that are obvious, we all fell in love with the franchise before Disney was involved. So we love it for some reason. I would say for me that that grade would be, what do we do in letter grade? Like report
letter grades. Yeah, we can do plus and minuses.
B plus, A minus. There's a solid run of Star Wars pre Disney. I think we enjoyed it for many reasons. And another question that I'm going to ask that I have asked actually online is when George Lucas was kind of messing around with Star Wars or wanting to have Star Wars on television. He was doing all the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles and all that stuff, really experimenting and preparing Industrial Light and Magic to bring, big screen special effects to the small screen. I always wondered, back then in the 90s, I always wondered, wow, is Star Wars going to be so awesome on TV? We're going to be getting Star Wars on a regular basis, which we are. But I always ask a follow-up question, is this the Star Wars that we were expecting when we were thinking about that in the 90s? Has Star Wars become, is this what we expected from Star Wars on the small screen? I'm going to
no, Alex.
Right. I'm going to say no, obviously. But it's funny though, because the franchise is so old. There are so many Star Wars products out there. And I think, for one reason or another, we play around with that question of, why is it that it's not hitting for us? And there's obviously, if you ask 100 different people, you're going to get 100 different answers. But getting back to your grade question, post sale.
Well, I'm gonna give my pre first.
Okay.
I'm gonna say I'm with you. A B plus.
Sure.
So I say the franchise back then, there were definitely some A's, maybe some A pluses in there, but there was definitely some C's. We had some C's in there.
Yeah.
The prequels for a lot, and people mentioned the holiday special, the Ewok movies. There were some C's, C minuses, maybe lower, but overall a strong B plus.
Sure,
highly entertaining. You can go back and watch it whenever,
right? And
it stood on its own. So I'm going to go with B plus. All right. So Disney bought it in 2012, right? What is your score now?
C minus. Maybe a solid C, right in there. There's a little sweet spot in there. Obviously, we're not going to sit here and crap on quote unquote Disney Star Wars or modern Star Wars, because there are some jewels in the mix there. But we want to be honest with our thoughts. But yeah, I would say a C. I know people are voting in the chat right now. Even lower than what I'm saying, but I would say a C.
So we have a couple that say C minus. I'm going to agree with that, especially not just because there was ones that we didn't like. It's because of what they've done to the lore as well. What they've done to the Jedi, what they did to Luke Skywalker's character, that sort of thing. So not just because of projects that we didn't like, but also the way they've fundamentally changed Star Wars since then.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, the execution is in question here. I think there's some concepts that have been pretty interesting to witness in some of the shows, but I think execution is where a lot of people have the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the other question that everybody's going to answer at some point tonight, what was the Star Wars film or show, whatever work that is the standard for you? What's the litmus? What do you compare all other Star Wars to?
Mm-hmm. And that's a question. As soon as we bring our panel out, that's the first question we're going to ask, because we do want to kind of have a baseline to see where you guys are at, where people are at. I find that question interesting. It's a great question. For me, it's going to be The Empire Strikes Back. It for many reasons. I think you and I share our love of the original trilogy. We have different films in that love. It's like a little love triangle there, but it's for me, yeah, The Empire Strikes Back. It's I joke around, and a lot of people know that I'm not too fond of overt comedy in my sci-fi fantasy, but The Empire Strikes Back really for me is top tier Star Wars.
Yeah, I might blow your mind a little bit here.
Maybe. You think?
Rogue One.
Oh, okay.
You thought I was going to say Return of the Jedi.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm going to say Rogue One. I had to think about it, and that is my most. That is the one that I'll rewatch the most now. If I can't think of which movie to watch, I will definitely put on Rogue One, even before Return of the Jedi these days.
Okay.
So I mean, it's got the story. Empire and Return of the Jedi, probably more Empire. They have the great storylines, but this has the great storyline plus the top notch visuals to go along with it. That we deserve to see. So I'm going to say now that wasn't the first thing, but now if I'm going to say this is the standard for Star Wars, I'm going to say Rogue One.
Yeah, and again, Rogue One obviously being part of the post, Disney sale, is one of the jewels, obviously, of the franchise as it sits now. And I would have to agree with you. And I think there's so much TLC that went into producing that film. I mean, they have everything. The look and feel of the original Star Wars. They even have the sideburns on the X-wing pilots. It's a great testament to what can be done. We're talking about Star Wars quality. And remember when we were reviewing Andor, the Andor series, I said when we're done watching the Andor series is going to be very difficult for me to go back to regular Star Wars. And by that I mean, they showed us that they can do some really fantastic stuff with Andor and with Rogue One, that going back to regular Star Wars and at the time I think it was Ahsoka, Kenobi, all those shows. I think Book of Boba Fett was before Andor. But it was difficult for me to go back to regular Star Wars. I'm going to put it in quotes, and for reasons that we will discuss. And I think, the lower quality of these shows for me was something that I just couldn't get over. But
that was a great show, not just a great Star Wars show. That was just a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know that that type of stuff was not everybody's cup of tea. But we should start bringing some folks in. What do you think?
Let's do it.
All right. So first, I'm going to give our Red 5 Network folks some preference here. we've got Andrew from the Science Fictionary and out of retirement of the podcast world here was his partner, Daniel Peoples. What's up, man?
What's up?
Good to see you guys here.
Yeah, glad to be here. Always glad to be here, and to get the show up for your 200th is awesome.
Thank you. Daniel, how's it going? Welcome to the Scarif Scuttlebutt Podcast.
Thank you. I know we before my retirement, as you say, we tried to do this a couple of times and it never worked out. So I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Absolutely. So Brad's question, we're going to take a baseline temperature everybody's Star Wars feels. Andrew, I'm going to start with you. What is your baseline when it comes to Star Wars quality?
A New Hope, the original.
Sure.
So I'm Now, when it comes to the original trilogy, I sometimes feel like my favorite is whichever one I watched most recently. I'm always changing my mind. It's like every time I watch one, I'm like, no, this is my favorite. And I love those movies, but A New Hope what A New Hope did, it changed the world. And so I always go to that one. And when I say that's my baseline, I don't think every Star Wars needs to be that good, but it needs to reach for it.
Sure. And how do you tell people that say, well, maybe it did reach for it. It wasn't that great, but you can't say that the creatives behind the scenes are wanting to have a crappy show. Like, what do you say to people that say, your critiques are too unattainable? Of course they want to reach for it. It just didn't for you.
I mean, I think that most creatives want to reach for something special, but I don't feel like that's not the feeling I get from the creatives making some of the stuff we're watching right now. They're not reaching for those originals. They want us to forget about those originals. That's the feeling I get from the people making things like The Acolyte.
You only say that because they've said that.
Yep. But no, I think that I don't think anybody's out there wanting to make anything bad. And, my wife that does this with me works in movies. Like, she's worked on some that aren't that good, but they were a job and she did her best. And I think that's the thing is you can go out and you can do your best. And I think that we should always strive to do our best at everything we do. And sometimes you're going to fail.
Sure. Yeah. Daniel, what about you? Tell us your litmus test there.
I have the same baseline, A New Hope. That's not, you can't set the baseline at Empire because what lives up to that in most of our eyes, right? So just be a good movie. A New Hope, A Force Awakens, just good, solid, enjoyable Star Wars if you want a baseline from something that already exists. Mostly, I'm not. Well, no, that answers that question. We'll get into the rest of it.
Yeah, I kind of like what you're saying there. It's almost like we're grading it on a curve with A New Hope. Like if you compare everything to Empire, you're never going to get anything.
All of us, if the only Star Wars movie we ever got was A New Hope,
sure,
we would all still love that movie, right? Yeah. It's not like we're grading it on a curve of, well, let's pick one of the weaker movies. That's still it's a great film, period. So,
and that's the issue that I talk about too. There's so much Star Wars nowadays that it's very difficult to maintain, I guess, a level of, I guess, either quality or stability of that quality. There's peaks and valleys in everything, and especially with a franchise this old, of course you're going to get some duds, you're going to get some jewels, you're going to get some great things, but you are going to get some stuff that just doesn't hit. But I think lately that those shows that don't hit have come a little faster at us, and it's like, why is this happening?
Well, none of us are wanting to lower. We were talking about if we should lower our standards to be able to enjoy it, and we shouldn't. And nobody I still want solid plot, character, compelling characters is number one. We still want good production design. We still want good flight choreography. We want it well made. And Acolyte, the most recent thing we got, misses on some of that. But when I say we shouldn't take it all so seriously, I'm not going to get upset over some of the things people really seem to get upset about that I'm just like a lot of the stuff with episode 3 and people got upset about, and I'm wondering what I'm supposed to be in an uproar about. Let's just, it's Star Wars. Just enjoy it. It still misses for me. I'm not a big fan of that show, but I'm also not going to let some of the stuff that I don't think we should take so seriously. Let's try to enjoy it.
Yeah, and you said something that's interesting to me. What's up, Crystal? What's happening? Thanks for coming by. You said something interesting for me. When we watch any movie, not just Star Wars, you want good characters, good, special effects, good story, et cetera, et cetera. I think for me, The Acolyte had some of those things, but not all of those things. And I think the baseline, the reason that we're asking question wise here about our baseline movies is that for us personally, those picks have everything that that we want to see in a movie. Great characters, great storyline, great depictions of the fightings and all that stuff. So it's like the complete package, where I think a lot of the shows lately, I mean, you look at Book of Boba Fett, you look at Obi-Wan Kenobi, I mean, they look fantastic on paper, but then the execution, there's something missing. One of the elements in this puzzle piece is just way off. And I don't understand, from a multi-million dollar, media company that is Disney, like where is that disconnect? Where is it falling off? And something that Andrew said regarding the filmmakers, there are a lot of filmmakers that want to leave their own impression on a project that they work on. And I don't know if that's a failing when it comes to hiring people to work on Star Wars, or should you just let Star Wars be Star Wars despite your ego, despite your own thing? Obviously we talk about The Last Jedi and how Rian Johnson wanted to, supposedly piss off half the fandom and impress the other half. I don't know what kind of philosophy that is, but if you want to make an artsy fartsy movie, then Star Wars is not the franchise to do it in, to be able to make your mark as an artist. But at the same time, the argument goes, how is Star Wars going to be ushered into the next 50 years? How do we make it change? How do we grow it? Does it stay stagnant? Do we always have the same, battle between good and evil? And I think The Acolyte kind of tries to play with that concept of, there's other things happening here besides the Empire fighting the rebellion. So, I don't know.
I'm just sitting here watching or reading the chat. There's some great comments back and forth in the chat tonight, and there's a lot of good points being made there.
Yeah, for sure.
We talked about certain elements. Steve mentioned the fighting scenes. I also thought the fighting scenes in The Acolyte were pretty good. Some thought it was too choreographed. I thought they looked amazing. I mean, we got to give credit where credit is due. We are critical enough of that show, but I thought the fight scenes were amazing. There's an interesting point. Let's see, it's never the fans' fault. The customer is always right. That's something interesting that we can talk about. Like, there, and it's almost been adversarial at times between writers and directors and producers against the fans. And that's a new thing, a relatively new thing.
It's funny though, because I know a lot of people take that stuff personally, and it's like, for me, it's like, let's let the directors talk shit. It's not affecting my enjoyment or non-enjoyment of a product.
But
it's
when they
like,
belittle you as a
doesn't bother me. Still doesn't bother me. They can
when
talk
when Chuck Wendig went off on all his rants back on Twitter back in the day. You're telling me who wrote complete garbage, which actually is pretty good compared to the garbage that they have now. When Chuck went off on people because he was right and they were wrong as readers, that didn't annoy you. Didn't bother me. It drove me crazy.
It's call me Teflon Road. Just, it didn't bother me. It's like, that's what he wants to say. Fine. But I still had my opinion. Those books still were wonky, wibbly wobbly. But let's get some more people in here. I want to bring in Jason B. Williams. And you guys might know him from, remember David Triana's Followers of the Force?
Indeed.
Back in the day, Jason was, you are on mute, Jason. Hello. Welcome to the Scarif Podcast.
Okay. How's that?
Perfect.
I haven't done this in a while, so all the little buttons and stuff are it's kind of like riding a bicycle, but not quite. So.
Excellent. Well, welcome. Thanks for stopping by and saying hello and joining the chat. It's wonderful to have seen your name in the DM, and welcome to the Scarif Podcast.
Well, thank you. I've been since we haven't been doing the podcast, I've had to just relay all of my opinions, good and bad, about Star Wars to my dog. So it's nice to talk. It's nice to have somebody who actually talks back.
Excellent. And speaking of talking back, let's bring in actor David Jones from the Delta Quadrant. What's up, Dave?
What's up, bro? How's everybody doing?
Everybody's doing fantastic. Thanks for coming by. Yeah, this is a great discussion. We got one more backstage. Obi Sean from the Force Diet Podcast. Sir, welcome to the Scarif Podcast. Once again, you are not a first-time caller, but thanks for stopping by.
Of course. Thanks for having me back. Happy 200th to you guys. It's a big accomplishment.
Absolutely. Let's see. I'm going to put myself over here. Let's have the guests up top. Brad wanted to be in the middle. There you go. There you go, Alice.
Oh, I'm
Excellent.
Greg Brady in this little thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, or am I Marsha? I might be Marsha.
I think you're Carol. Isn't Carol on the top? No.
No, I think
Not
I'm
sure.
Marsha's up there.
Yeah, I think I'm Marsha. Okay, I'm Marsha. Okay, cool. I can go with that.
Excellent. All right. So the question that we asked some of the folks, I'm going to start with you, Jason. What is your baseline for Star Wars when it comes to quality? Your favorite, top tier? Give it to us straight.
If I had to pick a whole movie, it's A New Hope. But I think probably my baseline, my favorite, is the first 45 minutes of Return of the Jedi. Basically from the opening until Jabba's sail barge blows up.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I think I've watched that more than probably any of the other movies. I just love that sequence. And so
you take the first 45 minutes and I'll take the rest of the movie. It works out great.
No, but it's got like, it's got a lot of, it's got lightsaber action. It's got monsters. It's got Boba Fett. It's got, it's got jokes in it. It's got Jedi Rocks, the special edition, which I fast forward through every time. But other than that,
nice. Too funny. Marsha. Yes. So, okay. All right. We'll take that. What about you, Force Dyad? What's your baseline?
For me, it's Andor.
Okay.
And kind of along the same lines that Brad had with the Rogue One answer earlier, but from a character writing, story-driven product, it's nothing's matched it. Definitely on the TV side, I don't think. From a live action, certainly, you could argue maybe Rebels and Clone Wars from an animated series perspective. I think the way that they made you feel about each character in their fight throughout the first season was great. The music, the score, Nicholas Bertel's music was fantastic, and I think it encapsulated for me what Star Wars is, which is the ordinary doing extraordinary things. And for as important as the Jedi and the Sith are to the storytelling and the lightsaber battles are and everything like that, in the end, it's really the rebellion versus the Empire, and the rebellion is more than just Luke Skywalker and Han and Leia. It's all those extraneous people, and I think Andor does a really good job of kind of showing those behind the scene folks that really drove everything forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I asked that question. It's like, why do they give us a show like Andor and Rogue One, if you want to throw that in, and then the rest of it is like, there's definitely a disconnect. I don't get it.
I agree.
David, your baseline for Star Wars. Don't say Wrath of Khan, damn it.
Not yet. I was really gonna say Revenge of the Sith. It was one of the first movies that I saw in high school. I grew up with the re-release of Return of the Jedi in theaters in 97 was that? Mm-hmm. I like, and what's it called? Rogue One was brilliant. It was the closest to looking like the original trilogy as we could ever ask for. But I want to say Revenge of the Sith. The musical, the score was fantastic. The visuals still look pretty damn good to this day. Ian McDermott just killed it. And it ended it ended the saga on a perfect end. Like, I still hold to this day the ending of Revenge of the Sith is the best ending we've seen anything in Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that's a good pick.
I mean the soundtrack definitely. Like, if I don't think any other movie stands up to the soundtrack of Revenge of the Sith. That's a whole nother show probably. So we won't get into it.
You put on your surround sounds back in the early 2000s. You do that opening crawl with on your surround sound. That sounded fantastic.
That bass. Hey, let's go for a speed round. Pre-Disney report card grades, and we'll just work our way around the room. We already gave ours. Let's hear everybody's grade. Pre-Disney Star Wars. Jason.
Pre-Disney Star Wars, it'd be A-, B+.
All right. Force Dyad. Sean.
B+.
Andrew.
I got to include the Ewok movies, right?
You do, yep. And the holiday.
I'll still give it an A- because I enjoyed the hell out of those Ewok movies as a kid.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. All right, David.
I give it an A-. The quality we got in the video games were fantastic.
And Daniel.
I'm going to give it I'm going to say a B, because Andrew forgot that even though, the Ewoks are fine, we still also have to throw in the Phantom Menace and
see, now we're getting shots fired. Whoa. The Phantom Menace.
My least favorite one. I don't know what to tell y'all.
It's like a fine wine. I mean, or not, maybe not fine, but it's wine. It ages. I don't know.
It still looks better than Attack of the Clones.
Facts.
There you go.
All right, Disney, Star Wars, the whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle. And we're going to go in reverse order this time, just to make it interesting. Daniel.
The total grade counting Disney or Disney by itself?
Disney by itself.
B+.
Okay. B+?
Yeah.
Okay. David.
I'll give it a C+.
C+. Andrew.
C-.
C-. Sean.
I give it a C+.
And Jason.
I'm gonna go just C. No minus, no plus, because there's a lot of highs and there's a lot of lows. So
Sure.
Right in the middle.
Okay, so we got somewhere between B+ and A for pre-Disney Star Wars, and an average of, I would say, this non-scientific C for Disney Star Wars. So I guess that you can ask, that could beg the question: is a C enough to stand on for a franchise? Kind of goes into this whole discussion. No. Okay.
No, because it's been the reason. I'll speak for myself. The reason I gave it a C is because it started high and it's just sort of going low. If we were judging it just in the last 5 years, it would be lower than a C for me, because you've got Andor and then you've got, I don't remember what the second season of Mandalorian was, but like those are 2 seasons of television, and then the rest is just not, just hasn't really hit for me. So
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So obviously we're talking about the question whether we should lower our standards when watching Star Wars nowadays. I think we shouldn't lower our standards, as somebody said. I think Star Wars has lowered its standards, so we don't have to lower our standards. I think there's a hashtag that I've been using, and I think I saw Andrew using it from time to time. Resist mediocrity. And I think mediocrity is something that is obviously subjective. One man's tomato is another man's tomato, as they say. I just coined that, by the way. So just Brad, I know you're thinking about that.
Yeah,
but
no one says that.
But yeah, I mean, what do you guys feel about? I'm not going to pinpoint any one specific, account or whatever, but obviously there are people out there that whenever a Star Wars show comes out, it's the best Star Wars ever, regardless of what the actual facts are, whether it's the most downloaded or the least watched or the one that fans hate the most. I mean, and again, that's subjective, but what do you guys, I'm going to ask you guys this, what do you feel that sort of thinking does to a franchise when I'm not going to be naive enough to say that the people at Lucasfilm are not watching the reactions of online, people, because we are fans. And I'm not talking about the big YouTubers and all the people that have, 20 million followers. I mean, just the kind of like the grassroots folks that are talking about Star Wars day in and day out. I'm sure some people up at Disney are like, really reading the comments. I mean, there are actors and people that have said that I've made fake accounts just to kind of interact with fans, just to see what they say. But I feel like the I love everything crowd kind of dilutes the discussion when it comes to having an honest opinion of where the franchise is going from a qualitative state. What are your thoughts on that? Whoever wants to take it first.
Well, I mean, yeah, it definitely. Well, I mean, you just get to a point from the sort of I love everything crowd that you just can't really, take their opinion seriously. I think just as corrosive though is the I hate everything crowd. I mean, there's people that
sure
hate Andor, and so it's just as bad. I think.
Agreed.
And there is as much as I really can't stand the word toxic anymore because I think it's overused. There is a thing called toxic positivity. Some people may have had a boss where if you're having a really crappy day and your boss said, "Hey, let's be positive. Right? It's a great day. It's a great week." You're going to hate that person because you're not having a great day. You're not having a great week. And so you can be positive to the point of being toxic about it. Like that precludes or that eliminates your ability to be constructive, to provide constructive criticisms. You love all your kids, but you correct them when they're wrong. Your kids are gonna do stupid things, and you're gonna correct them when they do it. And you can't just say, if your kid's trashing the house, you can't just be positive about it and say, "Hey, great job. Everything you do is great." No, not everything you do your kids is great. They do dumb stuff, and you got to correct them when you do. Why? Because you love them and you want them to be the best versions of themselves that they can be. So yeah, like Jason said, either end of the spectrum just ruins things.
And that's the thing about when we get criticized on Twitter for criticizing a certain section of the Star Wars fandom. I think people that see some of our posts and we critique the certain things, sometimes we get labeled toxic, sometimes we get labeled these guys are haters or whatever, but it's not that we hate something. If we have we lost the ability as a collective, as a species, however you want to call it, have we lost the ability to create creatively or discuss things that maybe some other people don't agree with in a way that we don't end up blocking people? I mean, I have found that I only block, I don't think I've ever blocked anyone, maybe one person at the very beginning, but I since have unblocked him. I think as a personality trait, I'm growing. Don't you think, Brad?
Sure.
It's funny though, because I mean, there are obviously accounts out there that are like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but Star Wars is perfect the way it is. And I'm like, no, it's not. But when we contribute our points in a discussion forum that Twitter is, you get labeled one way or another. And there a lot of times, and Brad and I have discovered this, there's like no middle ground. There's no middle ground. There's no room for us to discuss, like, what is it that you don't like about it? Why? Or the other way around. What is it that you like about it, and why? And there's never like a meeting of the minds where people say, okay, I respect your opinion. I'll disagree. And then all of a sudden you get blocked. David, you were going to say something?
I was going to agree. Like, I see, but like, obviously, you know, I work in that industry now, so I have both sides, you know, the Star Trek side of it and the Star Wars. I don't see the negativity from the Star Trek side of it from their fans, because I think that they put out such good quality on everything they've been doing these last couple of years. Is you don't get the toxicity like I see from the Star Wars side of it now. Like, Star Wars I love the franchise, but I think COVID changed so much. Like, you can't have these discussions anymore. It seems like it's either my way or the highway. There's no like you said, there's no middle ground.
Yeah. So I'd like to ask. This is going to come off completely wrong, but this is a real question. So we're talking about the bar and the standard. Do you think? I'll use the word realistic. I don't want to say lower, but maybe realistic. Do you think Star Trek fans, maybe why there's less of this, do you think maybe that bar is set more realistically than where Star Wars fans have set it?
Like don't get me wrong, like the Kelvin, you know, the J.J. Abrams movies weren't very positive with a lot of the Star Trek fans, because, you know, we all know J.J. Abrams, you know, especially after certain movies. But I don't know, like, we all agree, like, we've had some of the best games under the Star Wars branches. We've had, you know, Clone Wars was fantastic. That final season of the Clone Wars was some of the best stuff I've seen. Rogue One and/or Solo was decent as well too. Just, I don't know, I think Disney's, I'm going to take this like to HBO and stuff. HBO know how to do a series. I think Disney still doesn't know how to do that properly. And I think there's too much more back from the studios. They might have too much creative control.
I have to agree with you. I think, you know, even watching these shows, I mean, The Acolyte is evident. I feel like they're still kind of trying to finesse the process of writing these stories and splitting them up into a series. The Acolyte is a perfect example. It seems like The Acolyte was a movie that they split up and cut up in weird ways to make 8 episodes. And it's so odd to me. Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. Yeah. But I think for me, The Acolyte was like a lot. It was very, very obvious. Jason, what were you going to say?
No, I was saying, I feel like a lot of the shows, I think everything but like the first season of Mandalorian has sort of felt like, well, and second season of Mandalorian, it sort of felt like Obi-Wan just felt like, and by the way, the guy that did the fan edit kind of proved that it was just like a big movie they cut up into 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of feel like that. They just had like one like 400-page script that they just broke up into 8 pieces, and so.
Well, look at the quality difference when we saw for that book for the Boba Fett episode in The Mandalorian to the actual Boba Fett show. It was complete polar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Although the Book of Boba Fett had one of the best Mandalorian episodes, so that was
the Book of Mando Fett.
Am I remembering this wrong? When that show first started filming, was there not? Did some of the cast not say they thought they were filming a Mandalorian season and nobody told them until later? Oh no, we're going. I feel like they started that as a Mandalorian, and somebody midway through went, "Let's make this Book of Boba Fett." Like, that's honestly what a lot of that show felt like.
So where's it gone wrong then? Is this become, since they've done all these streaming services since the pandemic, is that where it's really gone off?
They just want you to they want you to consume. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, I do think we have too many streaming services, and I think they're beginning to weed themselves out. I mean, we're seeing some of them dying slow deaths. I mean, Apple just had a big announcement about cutting back on a lot of stuff. So I think too many, the streaming services didn't just replace other studios and networks. They just became another place that needed to fill time slots. And so, yeah, I think maybe some of us that we've just got too much stuff. The more you have, the more crap you're going to have.
So we've just come off the Acolyte, and Ro and I have been talking about this over the last few weeks. So for any of you, did any of you have, because Ro and I, we both had somewhat high, I think, expectations for that show. Did any of you have high expectations for the Acolyte going into it?
No.
And Sean, did it get anywhere close to your expectations whatsoever?
I mean, no, not in how it was being sort of painted as sort of a dark. I mean, I came into it thinking it was going to be kind of a dark sidey Sith look, and I guess it kind of got there towards the end. But as somebody who has read the books, or at least the first couple of phases of the books and the comics, I came into it with sort of a viewpoint of that era, and the opening crawl completely forgets everything that's happened before, the threats that Jedi had faced and everything like that. And so if you hadn't told me that it was in the High Republic, you would have never known. And I didn't think they needed to do that after watching the whole series. Like, I don't understand why Vernestra has to be in it. Like, it could have been any Jedi master, right? But I feel like they pulled her in because they needed that High Republic connection. They only made one reference to the story, the books with the hyperspace disaster. So it was a High Republic show or story that didn't feel very High Republic for me. So on top of the other criticisms as far as like the pacing, some of the direction with the story and the characters, that really missed for me.
Yeah. Daniel, were you one of the ones that said that you had high expectations for it?
I didn't. And not that I had low expectations. I kind of went into it with a clean slate. I didn't know what to expect from this show at all. I was a little bit like Obi-Wan, that I didn't understand. Knowing it was set in the High Republic era, and then whenever you got into the show, you're going, they could have, High Republic, what's going on, what we are led to believe and what we know is going on during that time frame has nothing to do with this show. It didn't have to be set in that time period to make it at all, but that was the only thing I really knew about it that set any sort of expectation for me, was that.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't, like I mentioned, the standards we had to hold to earlier. The fight choreography I really liked, which is another example of why I said, though, that there are things that upset certain people that I'm not going to take too seriously. People got mad because he head-butted the lightsaber with his helmet, and I thought that was cool as hell. Like, so there's a lot of things I didn't try to get too upset about and just take it easy. But I wasn't a big fan of it. The motivation of a couple of the characters is all over the place.
Oh God.
That's what I'm talking about with characterization. Figure out who she is and let her be that person. And so no, the Acolyte is a low point of the Disney era for me.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that pisses me off about any shows, the character motivations. It's like, you want to try to get to know a character because that's why you're there to watch this. Mm-hmm. And when the character motivations are written in a way that is flopping and doesn't really pick a side or pick a motive, then, you are given a reason not to care, and that's where these shows kind of fail for me. If I don't care about the characters, then I don't care about the shows. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
but
that an issue. What I said about, I'm sorry. What I think about the Acolyte too is like, I don't know what these characters want, so it makes it hard to care if they get them, and so it makes it hard to care about the characters. They kept changing the motivation of Osha and May in the show, and so it was just like, so they ended up being the two, at least to me, the two characters I cared the least about. I mean, that one kid just wanted to go home, but at least I knew what he wanted.
and they changed their opinions like multiple times in the show, not just show to show, but within the show they changed their motivations.
That one, was it the fourth episode, the one before the big fight? Like,
yeah,
out of nowhere is like, I'm going to turn myself into the Jedi. Just like, wait, what?
Yeah. So, David, you had your hand up for high expectations. Did it meet those for you?
No, unfortunately, like it had its moments. I think we all can universally agree The Accolades has had the best fight choreography since the prequels. I think we all can admit that it was definitely far better than any lightsaber stuff that we saw in the sequel trilogy. Okay, well, I'll give you that much. My thing is then is the show a failing because of the 30-minute time restrictions? Like, should have this been like the House of Dragon, The Boys, where there's minimum should have been hour-long episodes, so they're not jamming everything in, or at least expanding characters better?
I think for me, it's the baseline for me is the writing. The writing just lacks substance. It lacks heart. And, if the episodes were like maybe 40, 50 minutes, there might have been a little more exposition or character development, something additional. Because it does feel like it just it rushed through the characters. Like, this is this guy, this is that guy. They're fighting now. This is this guy, and it suffers because of that. I think, again, just for me, it's just the lack of quality writing. And again, going back to something like Andor and Rogue One, I mean, those guys know how to freaking write characters and well-developed stories. And I was very happy to see that. Even all the political stuff with Andor, with the characters, scheming behind the scenes. I mean, I love that. It gives them a certain background that makes you interested in what they're doing, what they're up to, et cetera, et cetera.
Krennic's probably been the best villain we've had, except for Kylo Ren in the Disney era. I think Krennic's been the best villain we see so far under the Disney brand.
Yeah,
it's still Tarkin. It's still we still got Tarkin, but with the Acolyte, there were still too many questions to be answered going into episodes 7 and 8. And Ro, you and I were making up headcanon like the entire time. Oh, do you think they're doing this? Do you think that? And I think they ended up not doing anything that we talked about.
I think I enjoyed hearing everybody else's canon rather than what we actually got.
It was better. It was it was like the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones. What everybody thought should have happened was way better than what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to switch gears, and Andrew, we'll start with you. At the beginning, we had everybody give their grades for pre and post Disney, and everybody is between a B+ and an A for pre-Disney Star Wars. But maybe it's a tough question, maybe it's not. Are we looking at pre-Disney Star Wars with rose-tinted glasses? Do we give George Lucas and the gang too much credit, undue credit? Is it just because it's from our childhood that we see it so fondly? Or do you think we're being objective about that? Like I said, Andrew, we'll start with you.
No, I think we're being completely objective about that. And I think that it bears out in popular opinion. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're talking about a trilogy that changed the world. It is one of the biggest pop culture things of an entire century.
Yes,
it is. So this isn't a small group of people sitting on a YouTube channel right now saying, "Oh, the originals were fantastic. They were great. They were the best thing that Lucasfilm's done." No, that has been the popular opinion since 1977.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, I don't think it's rose-tinted glasses. I think we're looking at something that changed the world. I do think sometimes, like I said at the beginning of the show, I think sometimes we look at it and we want everything that comes out to be that good. But I do think sometimes we have to be aware that it won't, that it's literally reaching for the stars. It's reaching to try to be one of the biggest things that's ever been, it's reaching for like the pop culture icon.
Yeah.
And some things won't make, and most things won't make it, but like try.
Yeah. Well, look at the premiere that A New Hope did in 77, and then the premiere of Phantom Menace in 99. We'll never see anything like that again. And The Force Awakens definitely didn't come anywhere close to like that.
Well, I want to, I'll get back to my original question there with rose tinted glasses, but to David, to your point, and this is something for me, I really, really, when it came out, enjoyed episode 7. I know all the criticism that it got, it was a carbon copy of episode 4. They just switched some things around, but pretty much it was 4 with maybe nicer graphics or whatever. I really enjoyed episode 7. I thought it was fun. I thought it had the, kind of the humor that we had from the original, especially A New Hope, had some of that comedy in there. And I was pumped after episode 7. And then we got Rogue One.
Yeah.
After that, it was 7 and then Rogue One. Yeah. How excited were you guys at that point in the Disney experience for Star Wars? Did you have high hopes for everything Disney was going to do after that point?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially after Rogue One, because you're like, well, then this is going to be the standard. This is going to be like we're going to get, because I still like I still love The Force Awakens. I just think it's a really fun Star Wars movie. I know all the criticisms, but I know all the criticisms of all the Star Wars movies. So, the litmus test is, do I enjoy the movie? And I enjoy The Force Awakens, and I love Rogue One. So yeah, I mean, I remember seeing Force Awakens, and me and my friends that saw it, because we all went and saw it like an 8:00 show. We were at the bar till like midnight, just talking about, so this is what's going to happen in 8. This is what's going to happen in 9. Like we had the whole trilogy like mapped out. We were super excited about what was coming next.
You did more work than the directors did.
Yeah, when
should have called us.
Yeah,
I was gonna say when the movie came out, after 10 years of being without a movie, I loved The Force Awakens when I saw it in theaters, and I think for the new generation of Star Wars fans, it was perfect, right? And it kind of goes back to the questions we were just talking about, as far as seeing things with rose tinted glasses, and it makes me wonder if Star Wars is trying to adapt to a younger viewer, right? A younger viewer who's grown up with YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, all this kind of instant gratification content, right? One of the things I heard about Andor being, knocked down, whatever, it was slow, it was boring. It didn't develop fast enough. Whereas, with Mando, it's run and gun, shoot 'em up. And I feel like parts of, some of the storytelling with its choppiness almost feels like it's trying to force that payoff, rather than allowing the stories to breathe. And so I think with with The Force Awakens and Rogue One and stuff, I think it was like the perfect entry for that new generation, right? And then obviously everything that came after as far as the movies go. But
Solo was okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed Solo. I felt that it
suffered from
unfortunately harpooned because of The Last Jedi. And I mean, Solo as a film is a fun film. Is it groundbreaking? Is it like amazing? No, but it is a fun, exciting sort of heist, centric film. It's a fun film.
So Daniel, where was your mind at after episode 7 and Rogue One? And you can answer the rose tinted glasses question as well.
No, so actually both these movies Andrew and I saw together. Yep. And I really enjoyed episode 7. I mentioned Force Awakens earlier when we were talking about our litmus test, right? And Rogue One usually stays, everybody's list kind of moves. Rogue One usually stays around 2 or 3 for me of all-time favorite movies, which Rogue One's the biggest reason I give my post-Disney Star Wars such a high grade.
Sure.
That and Rebels, because I love the Rebels show. After those 2 movies, I had huge expectations. And then like the rest of us, we got the next 2 movies. The next 2 saga movies, because I also enjoyed Solo. But as far as the rose-colored glasses question goes, I would say there's some of that if it was just the trilogy. But there's enough stuff that people are critical of in the Lucas era that I think we look at appropriately. The original trilogy, as Andrew mentioned a minute ago, deserves every bit of praise it gets. And then at the same time, there's mixed opinions on the prequel trilogy even now. I don't know many people who really like the holiday special, except I do like the animated portion because that gave us Boba Fett. I thought that was cool. So, I think we do a good job of being objective. I really do. Most people do. Not everybody who does what we do is very objective, but I think most people are, the vast majority.
All right, so we're going to get to the biggest questions of the night here in a second about lowering our expectations. Should we? Is it time? But before we get, I guess, sort of as a segue to it, and the reason why I thought of the question in the first place is I said, I was watching with my son, The Acolyte with my son. He's 10 and he enjoyed it. Do any of you have, and we mentioned the younger fans here a moment ago, do any of you have younger members of the family that really enjoy what Disney Star Wars is putting out right now?
But my nephew is 5. He's so into Star Wars. For his birthday, I'm getting him a Darth Vader where the helmet comes off, Black Series figure, and a Empire Strikes Back poster. Like, he literally maybe like 30 different variations of Darth Vader.
Well, it's because you're raising him on the classics, and that's what.
Well, no, but this is what I was going to say. He caught the last, I don't know if it was on TV or what, but he watched like the last hour of The Rise of Skywalker and loved it. He was like cheering when all the ships show up, and like he thought it was the greatest. Mm-hmm. And I do not feel that way about that movie. My sister sent me like a video of him like on the couch like cheering at the end of that movie, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I don't know this kid as well as I thought.
So where did it go wrong then? Because we're all admitting Solo was a decent movie. The Force Awakens was a decent movie. Force Awakens, Rogue One were all good. Where did it go? Mando season 1 and 2 were good. So where did it start going wrong?
Daniel's
got thoughts.
It went wrong with 8 and 9, and for different reasons. Because if you take The Last Jedi, I've said this before, take The Last Jedi out of the Star Wars universe, that's a really good science fiction fantasy movie. It is. I think myself and most people who have a problem with that movie don't. First and foremost, the characterization of Luke is a major issue. Mm-hmm. We don't like where it fits in the Star Wars universe. We don't like what it does to the lore, right? And then Rise of Skywalker is a bad film.
It's funny. Wait, Daniel, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second. It cracks me up when people say, when they have The Last Jedi and the Rise of Skywalker together, and then they choose to hate the Rise of Skywalker for reasons. I'm like, dude, The Last Jedi is like right there.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, I don't hate Rise of Skywalker. That's what I was just going to say. Objectively speaking, I can look at that and know, looking at them outside of the context of Star Wars, Last Jedi is a better film. It's a better made film. Last Jedi is. Rise of Skywalker is a bad movie, but I enjoyed it more. I've rewatched it more than I have the other 2 sequels. You
rewatched it?
Yeah, I rewatched it. I did because I like watching Lando show up. I like watching Wedge show up.
Sure, yeah.
I like, and it's
the 3 seconds of Wedge.
Hyperspace jumping is funny.
They fly now, Daniel. They fly now.
Yeah, they fly now. Bro, I watched them fly. Come on.
You didn't watch the Clone Wars.
It's bad. It is a bad movie, but there's so much of the fan service there that I enjoy.
Sure.
And I do like the lightsaber battles, and I enjoy watching Ben fight the Knights of Ren. There are scenes in that movie I really do enjoy. So that's what I'm saying. But that's where things fell off the rails. To answer the question that was actually posed, was those 2 movies. For different reasons.
I feel like where it really, really went wrong was when a director set out to make a controversial Star Wars movie.
Yeah, did it on purpose.
Yes.
That changed the entire dynamic of what we were doing with Star Wars. So The Last
Absolutely.
Jedi. And I honestly, I don't know. He has said things close to that. This is my opinion, but I feel like he set out to make something controversial, and it divided the fandom. And I have been on record pretty repeatedly saying, while I really dislike The Last Jedi as a Star Wars movie, I despise it more for what it did to the fandom than anything.
Preach.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You just don't like your expectations subverted.
No, I don't.
You just got to relax, man. You got to relax and let it happen. What? Okay, so we've had some great conversation, both here on the show and in the chat, and it's time for the main question. I guess it's a multi-part question. Should we lower our standards, our expectations for the Star Wars franchise? Is it time to do that? There will be a follow-up question or two, I'm sure, and we'll go off on some tangents. But that is the question of the night. Is it time that we lowered our expectations for the Star Wars franchise? Who wants first crack at this one?
First,
David.
before we go,
Go ahead.
Before we go, I want Brad to take this question. Star Wars Steve, he thinks that the fandom was broken way before The Last Jedi. I don't think that's true.
I don't know. I mean, we had, I would say, minor squabbles, skirmishes, if you will. No, I don't agree with that at all.
No, I don't. I mean, the only thing there is what the prequels that we argued over the prequels. Me and Daniel saw the prequels together. And I love them. I'm a longtime prequel apologist, and Daniel really doesn't care for especially those first two movies.
Yeah.
But we still turned around 20 years later and started a podcast together.
Right.
Like, I don't think that the prequels broke the fandom.
No, it was you know, if you liked it, that was fine. If someone else didn't like it, that was fine. And I think we left it at that point.
Yeah.
Well, the Phantom Menace had some of the best wardrobe we've ever seen.
100%.
Oh yeah.
It had the cool lightsaber fight at the end. It had the pod racing scenes that were fantastic for the time. Yes, Jar Jar was a little bit annoying, but it was still it was a long, very, I want to say, boring movie. But it still looks damn good for all these years.
Sean?
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick to add on that the availability of social media is what has driven, in my opinion, the divide in the fandom, right? Social media didn't exist during the prequels. And yes, there was the hate back and forth, but you couldn't get on your computer and just blast out nasty grams to whoever you wanted in, total anonymity. Where
we had AOL.
Yeah,
It just took longer. It just took longer to send nasty grams.
Yeah, you had to dial up.
That's true. You get your carrier pigeon, roll up the scroll, slide it in, and send it to your friend, and tell them how much you hated the thing they like. But I think the availability or the accessibility of putting everyone, your opinion out there, I think has accelerated and allowed sort of that stuff to kind of bubble to the surface and just be, more in your face than it was maybe when the prequels came out.
Steve, you're making some points there in the chat, about, the special editions and People versus George Lucas, obviously a great documentary. It caused some amount of controversy, maybe some amount, but
I think it was forgotten quicker than the hate for The Last Jedi has been, because
we're not still talking about the special editions.
Right. And again, social media really has exacerbated the length of the 15 minutes of fame for the hatred of The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually the convergence of The Last Jedi and the rise of social media and podcasting and YouTubers, which we're part of that, group too. I get it, but giving people a platform to hate it that vocally, and then all of a sudden it became cool to hate it. and you got a lot of views if you hate it. Let's call it what it is. And there's a lot of people still riding that wave who are, and that's been where the divide really started and came from, and what is keeping it going. If it weren't so popular to just hate all of this all the time, we wouldn't be where
it would die down. I definitely agree. Like every so often, I mean, even when somebody posts that they love something about The Last Jedi, some guy has to go into the mentions and just, go against it.
At the same time, if you at the same time that was happening, if you criticized anything about these movies, you were automatically labeled sexist, racist, every ist that you can think of, just because you said you didn't like a character. So respectful discourse, like Rose, it's out the window. We can't just criticize something. We can't provide constructive criticism now anymore without being labeled something just for that. It's asinine.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I thought Felicity Jones did a great job in Rogue One. I would love to see more of her if she shows up in Andor as well. If they do anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, her role in that movie and her in general, I don't see anybody talking shit about Felicity Jones and Rogue One. I don't see anybody.
You can't.
I hear a little things. I think a few of my friends didn't like Rogue One because they didn't like Donnie Yen. They didn't like seeing Donnie Yen in Rogue One because, again, they're used to him and Ip Man and stuff like that. But that's just nitpicks. But
I don't want to know those people. Don't want to know. All right. That was one of the movie. What? Okay. Anyway, so let's get to the big question. Jason, we will start with you.
Okay.
Is it high time that we lowered our expectations for the Star Wars franchise?
No. I mean, and I'll expand on that, but like my criticisms for the stuff the things I don't like in Star Wars are the same criticisms I have of non-Star Wars things. It's
sure,
it's story, it's plot, it's character, it's my issues with the Acolyte were not that I thought it was going to be this great thing. I'm always hopeful when something new in Star Wars comes out. I always want it to be good, and so maybe if you're talking about that as far as lowering your expectations, but I kind of feel like anything I sit down to watch, I want to be good. So yeah, I mean, I love Star Wars, but like I don't. And maybe I've just been trained by this, but by the last 10, 12 years, which is, I just go into it wanting it to be good. I don't expect it to be great. If it is great, that's fantastic. But I just want it to be good. But I just want anything I'm going to waste 2 hours or an hour or whatever watch to be good. So on that criteria, no, I don't think it's time to lower our standards.
All right, Obi-Sean?
No, we should, I certainly don't plan on lowering my standards anytime soon. I think the criticisms and the critiques come out of a place of immense caring and love for this story, this universe, and everything like that. And I think at the point that you stop criticizing or stop caring is the point at which the thing dies. The second, a fan base for a sports team, for example, just stops caring, they become sort of, in a malaise, right? You lose that, right? And so, Star Wars is the same way. I think the standard that someone sets it to is kind of where they come into the series. Those of us who grew up with the OT, as our first, we'll have a different point of view than those who start with the prequels and then, sequels and Disney Star Wars. And so I personally will continue to hold Star Wars to the standard that is Andor, as far as telling a compelling story. Give me characters I care about. Give me cohesion, right? And that's, kind of Jason's point. That's what you want in any movie, television show. You want to care. Game of Thrones fans, I think, enjoyed it up to season 7 or 8. I always forget how many seasons there were, right? Because you had the build up, and then it just was like,
right.
it fell apart. So no, I think as long as we continue to criticize in a fair way, not attack each other. I think that's where it gets out of hand. Right.
Right.
I think it drives, or hopefully drives, Lucasfilm and Disney to make, good stories and stuff that we will enjoy, because in the end it's Star Wars. I'm always going to watch Star Wars, the good, the bad, the ugly. But the closer we can get to Andor or Rogue One, or, the ones we talked about tonight, the better.
All right. Thank you. Andrew.
No, we should not lower our expectations. I think accepting mediocrity in anything is a dangerous road to go down. I think that with a franchise, to echo what Sean said, I think that, I'm not going to sit, my voice might not mean anything in the grand scheme of things, sitting here talking to myself on YouTube, but I'm not going to sit and watch the thing that I love. I speak about it because I love it. And I'm not going to watch the thing that I love die without saying something.
Yeah, good point.
And that's at the end of the day. And, and the thing is, I'm not going to get into it here, but I mean, with the Acolyte in particular, I spoke more harshly against that show than I've ever spoke against anything on my podcast, because I felt like it crossed some lines into dangerous territory, and not just for making mediocre shows, but morally questionable shows, things that preach the wrong message to kids becoming adults. So yeah, I refuse to accept mediocrity. I strive to do the best. I get up every day and try to do the best I can with everything I do. And I expect the same thing from the people that make my entertainment. It doesn't mean they're not going to make things that are subpar sometimes, but that's going to happen. But I want them to try for greatness.
Great points. And I love what you said about bringing up the morals too. We hadn't previously talked about the morals. But I miss when it was as simple as good is good and bad is bad. And now they've really kind of perverted those ideas.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, for me, moral relativism is evil.
Yeah.
That is simple as that. That's my opinion. But I'm going to stick to it. And that's what the last episode in particular of the Acolyte preached. So I had pretty big issues with it.
All right. Daniel.
No, you don't want mediocrity, right? We've all seen what certain Marvel shows are. Madam Web and Morbius. They were pretty bad. We definitely don't want to see stuff like that in anything. You want to see the quality, right? Disney approved Andor, Mando Mando Season 1, Mando Season 2, Rogue One. They can put good quality out there. Just whatever the formula they did for all that stuff, start doing that with your future stuff as well too. Just whatever they did with that, it worked, and it proves they can do it again. Just whatever they did for that, do it with the future content.
Yeah.
And Daniel.
Yeah, no, we're not going to lower our standards expecting quality television for sure. Like we mentioned earlier, I want good characters. I want, make the show look like you put $100 million into it. That's what you put into it with production design. A plot that makes sense. Well, we shouldn't lower our standards to those things. That's what you expect from every piece of quality entertainment you get. And not just Star Wars. That's what we expect. That's what I want out of my Star Trek. That's what I want from Marvel. That's it in everything. I do think we sometimes get caught up too much in what canon we want it to hold to. As Marisha so famously says, not all canon is created equal. When I say I don't want to take it so seriously anymore, those are the things I'm talking about. I'm not going to get mad that a Jedi I saw on screen for 10 minutes 20 years ago all of a sudden might be older than I thought. Things like that. That's when I say people get too upset over that kind of stuff. Now, if you want to be upset over the show's writing or the fact that the characters' motivations constantly change and things like that, I'm with you. those we should always expect this stuff to hold to those standards.
Yeah, and we had a follow-up question to this, and I think Sean, I think you may have kind of already answered this. What are the consequences of lowering your expectations, lowering your standards? But I think you said it best. Whether you guys remember, like, back in school, or now I see this in the workplace. Who are you hardest on? You're hardest on the people that you care about the most, that you see the most promise and potential in. The teacher that had someone who knew, was gifted, they would be harder on that student because they expect more from that student. And I think it's the same as in the workplace. If you have someone that doesn't care, if, at least for me, I don't spend any time on that person. I'm not going to waste my time with you if I know that you don't care. And I will ask, I have asked, some of my sailors in the past, do you care? Let me know right now. You tell me no, we'll stop this conversation right now. I have people that actually care, that want to do good things, and those are the people that you are hardest on. And I think, Sean, you said it, like, the moment you stop caring, that you lose that person. Any future they had is gone. And, we talked about with the kids, we're hard on them because we want them to be the best versions of themselves that they can possibly be. And I think that's the risk that we run if we do lower our expectations. Ro, what are your thoughts on all this?
I think we definitely should not lower our expectations. And I know a lot of people nowadays, I don't know, when I see across the board, mostly we've got a little gray in our beard, a little gray on the side. And it seems like, for fans of a certain generation, we have been used to years and years of talking about stuff that we don't like with other fans that like the same stuff we do. We may not agree with the same things, but at recess in the play yard, we talked about the stuff that characters did or didn't do, and we compared notes. And I think I don't know if it's because the younger generation has really related to people not face to face and more on the keyboard, where it seems like if you say anything disparaging about anything, people lose their minds. We lost the art to communicate and critique things in a way that that is useful and constructive. And I know Andrew has said it many times on his show regarding the art of critique. These are projects that are put out in the public for us to consume, for us to absorb. And one of many aspects may not agree with you, but I think when it comes to Star Wars, it's been a long franchise, a long running franchise, and we're going to find certain things that really don't speak to us. And Star Wars speaks to us on different levels for many reasons, whether you're 20 years old or 50 years old. But I think when it comes to lowering our standards, and there was a question that I put up earlier, Subtle Deviancy says, what's worse, apathy or accepting mediocrity? I think they're both pretty bad, but accepting mediocrity, like Andrew said, damages not only the product that you're accepting the mediocrity in, but it also damages your credibility when it comes to discussion on this platform when we're doing stuff. Getting back to the I love all Star Wars comments, it's like, yeah, that's Crystal earlier said it. It's kind of odd to me that someone would say, I love everything. Yay. I'm like, you can't. And I've said this to certain people, like, you must have a favorite Star Wars hat, right? You do. You have one favorite over another. And if you don't, then I kind of question your credibility, your street cred, because everyone should have their own opinions about something that they claim to love. Whether it's I hate this part of it or I love this part of it, we all should be able to discuss those aspects of this franchise in a way that, like Jason said, doesn't insult other fans. But if it is something that you disagree with, then okay, accept it that other person doesn't see this franchise in the same way. But as far as lowering our standards, no, absolutely not. And I would hope that people start to at least accept the fact that there are certain things in the franchise that some people might want changed, because we do love Star Wars and we do love talking about it, and we don't want it to go away. We don't want it to be diluted. And Liam Neeson a while ago said that he feels like there's so many Star Wars shows out there that it dilutes the brand. And I agree a little bit on that, because again, Andrew said, if you get, the more Star Wars you get, the more possibility of mediocre stuff and stories that you get. And I understand that. But then again, we don't want to go back to the 90s where we had no Star Wars and we were living in the dark times. I mean, I don't know where that balance is, but I think the fact that they showed us, and then the Star Wars animation shows are pretty much better than the live action stuff, and it blows my mind. Like, where are those? Yeah,
I was just gonna say that. Why is it the live action shows that are just mediocre? Like Rebels was good, Clone Wars was fantastic. People loved Visions, Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire. Like
Bad Batch.
Bad Batch? Yeah, exactly. Live action shows just seem to be poor.
During our Mando talk, I was surprised that I was enjoying the Bad Batch a hell of a lot more than I was enjoying Mandalorian. But I wish there was a consistency in quality over all the Star Wars projects. And I know that's a difficult bar to set, but when they give us shows like Andor and Rogue One, et cetera, and the animation, I don't understand why they can't just maintain at least a decent level of some quality. I mean, it does seem like it's getting lower and lower and lower. If you look at that chart of the viewers of each of the shows, I mean, The Acolyte is the newest show, but it's also the one that has even the least amount of views. Why is that? Why are we going downhill?
Well, I mean, I think that one of the things that for me with this one was that more and more of the people, this was usually I've got like a whole network of people that I will go talk to. They're like casual Star Wars fans. I know, Ro, you kind of do the same thing. And, because I want to see what just people who don't dig as deep into this stuff as I do think. And the casual fans are checking out. And that's not good. I mean, my kids are pretty into this. I mean, sometimes they podcast with me, but I mean, my 14-year-old watched one episode of The Acolyte. Just after it starts, she goes, they're not going to do the evil twin trope, are they? As soon as they did it, she groaned audibly and she left and she won't watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, my 15-year-old son watched, like I said, my 10-year-old enjoyed it. My 15-year-old, he's like, what is this? And he wouldn't watch another episode either. Yeah. He's like, this is corny. But, Ro, to your point about being objective, I think that allows us to do like what Daniel was talking about earlier. I think your point was spot on, Daniel, about the difference between The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. You could objectively say that the Last Jedi is a quote unquote better film than what The Rise of Skywalker is. Right. But The Rise of Skywalker is a better Star Wars movie. Yeah. Than what but if you just say, hey, I love everything Star Wars, then you lose the ability to think like that.
Yeah. And I think what I'm saying is I don't need every movie I don't even need them to be perfect. I mean, I think when you look at Star Wars very objectively, if we're going to say perfect film, I think A New Hope's very close. Empire is one of the few films. I mean, I don't think there are very few films that you can say are truly perfect films. And I think Empire Strikes Back is one of them. I don't need Star Wars to be perfect. I do need it to be fun and entertaining and enjoyable. And I feel like that's what it's losing for me is I'm starting to not enjoy it.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I felt with that's kind of one of the reasons I like Star Wars. It's why I like Solo. Solo is fun. For me, I always equate Star Wars with something that's just fun. I mean, even if it's something deeper like Empire Strikes Back, there wasn't a lot of fun in the Acolyte. So that was another sort of issue. I mean, aside from all the other issues in it, it was like it just wasn't a lot of fun. And I mean, I guess that there was the little gopher guy that was supposed to be fun, but it was just annoying. I don't remember his name.
Yeah. So for those who were paying attention, you may have noticed that there was no Scarif Live last week because it was Ro and I reviewed episodes 1 through 7 of The Acolyte, but by that point, we were just spent like that. I had, and we, if for anybody that tuned in a couple weeks ago, I couldn't be positive, and I almost feel like I need to apologize. I couldn't be positive about it. Like there was, I had, chalked it up for a loss, and and then 8 didn't do anything to change my opinion, and Ro had already, I guess, read my mind and put it on Twitter. Hey, we're probably not going to do it on Saturday. And I'm like, thank God he put that, because I don't have to ask Ro to not do Scarif Live. Because we couldn't do it. And it was becoming a chore. Like, this stuff should never be a chore to watch.
No. Should the Acolyte have gone through rewrites?
Yeah, a couple.
Ro said it a few times. Like this was like the first draft.
But it's one of those things. Like, I mean, I feel like it took a long time to get this show out. I mean, it feels like forever ago that we first talked about it after the announcement, and I kind of find it hard to believe that it didn't undergo some rewrites and still ended up with this.
You mean it was worse?
I think possibly, yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Yet it took the Andor series forever to do, and look how good it finally came, right?
Yeah.
I will. Here's like a yes or no question, because I'll go ahead and I'll start with myself. Acolyte was the first Star Wars show that I did not recommend to people. Like if somebody asked me, like, "Oh, there's a new Star Wars show, should I watch it?" Acolyte was the first one. I was like, you can skip it. You don't need to. And I've never said, I didn't even say that about Ahsoka, and I didn't really care that much for Ahsoka. But like Acolyte, after about 3rd or 4th episode, like friends who were like sort of casual fans, they were like, "Should I watch it?" And I was like, No.
Wow. Yeah. Sure. Well, this has been a very lively discussion. Thank you to everyone on the panel and folks in the chat. It has been fantastic. We always have a second show going in the chat with their own comments and things like that. So I want to thank everybody that joined us and hung out with us for almost about a little over 90 minutes. But it's been fantastic. Everybody in the chat. Final thoughts on lowering your standards when watching Star Wars. It's difficult too, because as Star Wars fans, we obviously have established that we do not want to lower our standards. But when it comes to, I want to ask you guys this question too before we leave. Online, obviously, you see all the renew the Acolyte season 2. We want all this stuff. When it comes to allowing a collective voice to say, we want this, is it our duty as the other side of the Renew clan to say no? Do we let them say renew it, or do we become a-holes and kind of voice our opinions, or do we just leave them alone and then do our own thing? It's like, I always find it like a weird gray area where obviously, we're all about not, pooing on other people's parades and letting them have their fun. But at the same time, it's like, we can have a second season, but a lot of things have to change, bro.
Yeah, literally.
Well, no, I mean, if there's people online that are saying renew it and there should be a second season, well, they clearly enjoyed it, and I'm in a weird way kind of jealous,
Yeah.
So,
let them have it. We don't have to watch it.
That's true.
Or actually, God's honest truth, if the second season did come, I probably would still try and see if I
would too.
Because we're all gluttons for punishment at this point.
I mean, honestly, if they're like if they said the second season of Acolyte's coming out next month, it's like, all right, well, I'll watch it and see if it gets better.
But by the same token, if they announced that if the minute we go off air, they said we've decided not to make any more Acolyte, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not going to stop them from doing it, or can't try to cancel out anybody else's opinion on it.
Yeah, I sincerely hope they don't make another season, but I don't do what I do here to squash other people's wants and likes. I don't. Sure. and I don't have an issue with people that like things I don't. And so I see those things and I'm tempted to say things, and ultimately I'm not looking to try to start a debate with someone who's not looking for a debate. They're just saying renew the thing I like. Fine. That's fine.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great point.
Yeah, I would never jump in and tell somebody, hey, don't like the thing you like. I'm in the Make Solo 2 Happen campaign, camp, and clearly Disney doesn't listen to the people who want that, right? So, but no, I'm not one to jump into somebody's Twitter comments or whatever to poo-poo their ideas or their wants.
Sure. Yeah. We go ahead.
Just do it, but get rid of this 30-minute episode nonsense and start going to an hour. If you're going to do it, just do it properly from the get-go.
Make a show.
Yeah,
make a real show.
I think, I think ever since Star Wars streaming has started, I think they do really have this weird growing pains on how to actually make episodic television. It does, since Kenobi was apparent. I mean, it was supposed to be a movie and they chopped it up into, 12, 13 episodes or whatever. Or was it?
That seems to be
we got 6.
Problem.
Yeah.
Maybe Sean's right. Maybe it's an attention span issue. Maybe they can't hold people for 50 minutes. Maybe 28 to 32 is the max they can hold people's attention.
I do push back a little bit on the whole time thing because I've been watching The Bear. Most of those episodes are 20, 30 minutes, and they feel complete. They feel like a whole episode. The animated, those were only 22 minutes. Those all felt complete. I mean, I know they were like part of a larger story, but sometimes with some of these Star Wars shows, not just the Acolyte, they just feel like they just stop. You're like, oh, that's the last scene?
Right.
Okay.
But that's the problem with narrative structure, though. I think, again, it's like the Acolyte definitely felt like it was like a movie and they just cut it up in like weird spots. They probably just looked at the piece of paper, cut it up, the scenes, and threw them up in the air, and then just kind of it's a weird way where they split those.
Too many mystery boxes too.
Yeah. But for our complete Acolyte review, you guys are gonna have to wait till later. But again, Brad, any other final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Well, anybody else got any final thoughts on this?
I thought Kamir was good. I thought Kamir was awesome. I did like to see more story with him as well too. Soul, for a man that never spoke English before, I thought Soul did a great job with everything he did as well too. So there wasn't a good parts of this show, just too much that dragged it down.
Yeah, I felt they did Soul dirty. That was like I just felt like they did him dirty. I was like, oh, he was like the one character I really liked, and then like they threw him under the bus at the end of the episode, at the end of the show.
If he's gonna get killed, it should have been by somebody a lot more powerful than it should have been by Plagueis.
Well, it wasn't even that he got killed. It was just like they blamed him for the whole thing. It's like, oh yeah, it was all Soul. He was this rogue Jedi. And he's like, oh, not only did he die, they ruined his reputation. I was like, they did him dirty. They just did him so dirty.
Remember, this was the height of the Jedi Order.
Going that way, though.
The height of the New Republic, but absolutely. Well, guys, this has been a wonderful discussion. You guys are welcome back anytime. You guys want to chit chat on a Scarif Live? Most of you have already been on our show. Thank you for coming back, and welcome to our new friends. It's been fantastic. Why don't we go around the table and tell people where people can find you to say hello there, Jason?
I'm on Twitter, Jason B. Williams 1. That's about it.
Sean.
Yeah, so you can catch us, our podcast, John and I, on all your pod catchers, on YouTube, Twitter, at Forced Diet Pod, and Forced Diet Podcast on pretty much everything else.
Excellent. Andrew.
All right, you can find me on Twitter at crew_podcast or at sci_fictionary. Coruscant Radio Underground is our Star Wars show that's part of Science Fictionary. You can find us on all the podcatchers or here on YouTube.
Excellent. Daniel.
I am Dan C. Peeps on Twitter.
Excellent. David.
You'll find me on Twitter at the Big Guy 86 on Twitter, and at Actor Damon 86 official on Instagram, and in Trap in theaters the next Friday.
Awesome sauce.
Congrats.
Very nice. Brad.
No one cares about me. They just want the PlayStation. I'll do that. If you actually care, I'm just Brad on Twitter. Literally, I don't care anymore. Yeah. So that's my name. Brad. I'm just Brad. I'm surprised it wasn't taken, but it wasn't.
That's too funny.
My seventh account on Twitter. So, yeah. And
speaking of PlayStation,
should we give it away? You want to give it away now?
Yeah, our episode 200.
Yeah, I guess it's that time. So we did a giveaway on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Asked people to tweet, why they love Star Wars. Give it a good hashtag. And I said all along this was going to be a random thing, and you could enter every day. I don't always trust the science, but I do trust the math. So when you enter every day. Since the thing started, you have a great probability of winning, and such was the case here. And I wanted to congratulate Vader Rapina for winning the PlayStation 4. Thank you so much for your support that you have shown us for a very long time, on Twitter, everywhere, YouTube here. Thank you for the support that you've shown us. Thank you for all the entries. This was a random thing, but again, he had the majority of the entries, so you actually won. So Vader, if you will send me your information, you may already have it. I will get that to you. Give me a few days to put it together, and I'll throw a few games in there as well, and I'll get that shipped to you so you can be playing it in no time. Just give me a few days, and I'll get that out to you.
Absolutely. Vader has been supporting us for a long time, like you said, and I'm really happy that he won our PS3 contest. And let me know, because I got a couple of
PS4, bro.
PS4. Sorry. Whoop.
Yes. I'd still play a 3 though. If I had one, I'd still play it though.
I still have my 3. My 3 is good. My 4 is good. And I have yes, Brad, I have Need for Speed on both systems.
I was going to send you an Instagram today. The guy was doing a little race car simulator. I'm like, you need to upgrade your Need for Speed.
Too funny. All right, guys. Again, thank you guys for hanging out with us. You guys are more than welcome to give us a follow at Scarif Podcast. We are proud founding members of the Red 5 Network. If you want more Red 5 Network goodness, head on over to bio.link/Red5. There's a podcast waiting for your ears to enjoy. Until next time, thank you so much, Brad and Ro and the rest of the gang. May the force be with you, and live long and prosper. Right, Dave? Thank you. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.